Hello again, it's David. We're back for another round of discussions, and since the last time we spoke, we've had some very dramatic events.
Hi there, I'm Stu Rochelle, and I know David is just hungry to get onto these events because he usually wakes up mad and pissed, so I think he looks very ready today.
Oh, I am. And I'm going to try to keep it temperate like I always do, but I was riding my bike around Manhattan on Saturday, having a relaxing time, enjoying the weather, the swampy heat. I was drenched in sweat, and what comes across my phone? Trump, someone attempted to assassinate him. And when I saw it, I was like, nah, this can't be. But it was actually true. And then at first I wondered, I wonder if he really took a bullet. And, frankly, I wasn't all that upset one way or another because I could care less about him. To be blunt, unlike the hypocrites in the Democrat Party who are like, this is so terrible. Let's face it, we all know what they think privately about Donald Trump.
But they may not have been wishing him to die. I know some might.
Oh, I think a lot of them might.
Okay, I'm offering a little more of a sensitive message there that some may not have been rooting for death.
That's touching. I would like to think that's true, but when I think of someone like Chuck Schumer, I think otherwise. Okay. But anyway, I heard this, I was stunned. Obviously nothing, he wasn't really seriously injured, grazed ear, blood on his face, and probably a little rattled. But sure. On Fox News, one of the first things I hear them talking about, because Trump raised his hand defiantly, surrounded by Secret Service, burly Secret Service men, may I add, who were protecting him from any bullets.
And some shorter, smaller women that really weren't up to the task of coverage.
Well, he's hard to cover.
Look, they should be big enough and strong enough to cover.
Well, we need, a wildebeest because he's enormous. But that's another story. But we can get to that issue, but I know what you're... But anyway, they were referring to Trump and his reaction as heroic. He's a man's man. Which is completely ridiculous. He was protected by Secret Service. Not well, but he was. And nothing really happened to him. And I don't really see how he's a man's man unless you think that a man who cheats on his wife, who is pregnant with a porn star, and then pays her off to be quiet, is a man's man. That's like saying Bill Clinton is a Boy Scout. This guy is not a man's man, whatever that means, unless he liked being huddled by all those burly Secret Service men. I've never seen anything more outrageous and disgusting. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised. Trump is a clever magician, right? I personally thought the hand fist and the blood smeared on the face, which I think he did intentionally.
I think you've gone too far. Look, it's possible, but
anything is possible out of that carnival barker. But who was the real hero of the situation, Stu?
There's no question. I mean, the guy who threw himself on his family, on the wife and two children, Corey Comparatori, he's, a volunteer fireman. Everyone had kind words to say about him. And that's really a hero. When you are at risk of dying and you want to save someone else from that fate, it's not quite the same as the guy who throws himself on a grenade. That's knowing death, really. But it's that characteristic of something else before self. And I asked the question, I even raised it at dinner last night with a couple of folks, and there wasn't a response. I asked, do you think Donald Trump would give his life to save the life of another?
He would never. He would be hiding under a table to protect himself. The guy has no integrity whatsoever, nor does he have much character. We all know this. He stiffed his creditors. He's declared bankruptcy multiple times. He is not a person of integrity or character. And once again, we must emphasize, this Christian hero, according to some of those idiots on Fox News, is a guy who cheated on his pregnant wife with a porn star. Granted, I'm sure melanoma doesn't really care and knew what he was doing anyway, because let's face it, she's not in it for his good looks and charms. She's in it for vengeance.
That's clear? Is that clear to you?
Well, what is it clear to you, Stuart? Do you think a woman who looks like her and dresses like her and acts like her is hooking up with some 72-year-old like barbarian who eats McDonald's for his charm. No, she's getting the Gucci, the Pucci, Fiorucci. She is nothing but a gold digger, and it's fine. Good work. She's been a successful gold digger.
Someone raised the question at dinner last night. It came out of almost nowhere, I thought. A lady said, do you think they're separated? And I said, well, I have no reason to believe they are. She's protecting their children. She's trying to keep them out of the limelight. She only came into view one time that I remember in a formal way. She gave a pitch, a speech that was prepared for her. And it wasn't right in some fashion. Do you remember that? It wasn't.
I think you're referring to her first speech at the Republican National Convention. They claim she plagiarized.
It was plagiarized. Well, she didn't. Someone else did.
Right. And I mean, it's kind of funny listening to liberals complain about her, who could barely speak English, complain about plagiarism, when look who their presidential candidate is. A multiple rounds of plagiarism the first time he ran for president, stole words from Bobby Kennedy, stole words from Neil Kinnock, a labor leader who failed to win election against the great Margaret Thatcher multiple times because he was trying to claim he was some working class hero. Now, I'm digressing, and I will stop because there's so many things to say about Joe Biden. One of the things we know about him the most, along with currently being demented, is that he is a plagiarist and a flagrant liar and a disgusting human being. But that all said, Stuart, a poor melanoma. And no, I don't think they're really separated in the legal sense of it, because why would she separate? I mean, she needs that money. She needs the Mel-Lago or whatever the hell she trusts. Right. I mean, she's off on Worth Avenue every day at like Hermes and all those places, buying her $20,000 bags and laughing her way all the way to the Botox clinic.
What? Well, thank you for that, very objective report on
melanoma. I mean, seriously, she's so trashy. She's perfect for Trump.
I don't know that she's so trashy. I just think she was overwhelmed. Anyone would be being in his wake. And, well, it's true. And I think she chose the proper course to raise her children, as other mothers have when their husbands have been in the White House.
I'm sure she's a really good mother.
I do. No, I mean it. You don't give me the wink there. I mean it. Okay.
Stuart, you will try to find something good in even the most repulsive human beings. And
I think it's a fair question. I won't do it for many repulsive people.
Well, that is true that you do have hatreds, but you keep them a little more wrapped up and they're not as, how should I say, random and all over the place like me. But, another thing that this whole assassination attempt brings to mind is, political violence and how we've gotten to this point. It's kind of sad. But one of the things we've heard the radical Democrat left discuss is how violent Trump is, his rhetoric, the January 6th debacle, and all of these, political events
that debacle was his attempt to overthrow the government.
Well, so they claim.
I claim it.
I think you're probably right. But what about them? What about their history, Stuart? Let's go down. What did the left wing do during the Vietnam War? First of all, they're the ones who committed the troops to Vietnam. And then when things went bad, they tried to back away from it. And we know, as a fact, there were a lot of domestic terrorist incidents related to it. The Weather Underground, William Ayers, and Bernadette Dawn, good friends of Barack Obama. Yeah, they blew
the houses right a few blocks away.
Right on West 11th Street. You walk by it, it looks odd because they built, they had to repair it after it blew up and it killed someone. And, William Ayers and his wife are the backbone of the left wing of the Democrat Party. And who also is another left-wing Democrat who was very... I mean, there's no words to describe what a repulsive human being this is. And yes, I'm going to leave this to you, Stuart, because I know this will get...
I know where you're going.
Yeah, I think you do. And I'm going to give it to you because you served your country, and this disgusting bitch spit on your legacy.
I don't know. It wasn't my personal legacy, but in 1972, she went over to Vietnam, North Vietnam.
Say her name first. Hanoi, Jane.
Jane Fonda. And let me start off by saying this. She was, in her heyday, a wonderful actress. And now I don't know what she does, if anything, with, fitness videos, or I don't know what else she does. I'm not even sure I'd recognize her anymore. I saw some photos where she's had a lot of work done. But putting that aside, she was a wonderful actress. But I think one has to be able to separate different pieces of a person. And she was a traitor. It's that simple. The Constitution says in Article 3, Section 3, giving aid and comfort to the enemy is treason. Now, the only reason she wasn't prosecuted for such a thing was because of all the inflammatory stuff going on in the country while that was going on, and no one would have dared do that. But I saw a video of her. Just today I looked at a video of her go in North Vietnam. She was laughing, joking with the North Vietnamese troops. She had her fist pumped up in the air, much the same as that guy Smith. Do you remember at the Olympics in Mexico City when the Black Power stuff?
Oh, yeah.
The fist, that's what it was. And it stunned me. I mean, I hadn't seen that before. And it reminded me of, and that to me is evidence, pure evidence, of giving aid and comfort to the enemy. And I wanted to just add one thing to it. I met a guy named Noel Prince some years ago. I saw him twice, and he's passed. He was a carrier pilot off of Vietnam on a carrier. And he had a wingman named J.M. McCamey, M-C, capital K-A-M-E-Y. And according to Noel, McCamey, who was the second naval pilot shot down over Hanoi, second to a guy named Eddie Alvarez. So McCamey spent 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton. Try that on. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. What heroism is involved, what character is involved with making it through that without giving up the family jewels in terms of information. These guys got tortured. So he was there. And McCamey, said to Prince, who said that to me, I know it's secondhand, but McCamey said to Prince, oh, yeah, of course. They showed Jane's pictures to us. And they're not doing that in a photograph album to make them, this isn't for their mental welfare. It's trying to hurt their morale.
Right, break their will and spirit. Well, she is obviously a traitor to this country, yet she still gets parts, not the same way before.
I want to interrupt, because she has never damn apologized.
Never.
Never. What she did years ago, she came out in some video and she said, I'm sorry if I made people feel bad. Those were the words. She never said what I did was wrong. Never said that.
Because she doesn't think what she did was wrong, because she is an arrogant Hollywood elitist who was raised in an elite Hollywood actor family. She has no touch with reality. And the fact that she went over and gave aid and comfort to the enemy, I mean, I'm not a Vietnam vet, but that disgusts me. Now, why don't you tell me, Stuart, how your Vietnam vets honor Jane Fonda?
Yes, I've told you this. I'm glad you reminded me. We get together, a group of vets, mostly combat vets, mostly Vietnam vets, get together once every 3 months or so at a pub, and we have lunch, we have cocktails, we try to smoke a cigar off a balcony or a fire escape, and we just get together. It's camaraderie. One fellow who shall remain unnamed, he has always brought to these luncheons, long before I came to the luncheons, he brings a colored photo of Jane Fonda, and he puts it over a urinal every time in any place we go to. And that has been a spot of just joy, of guys just pissing on her.
You know what? In real life, she might actually enjoy that.
Oh, no.
Well, she certainly deserves that kind of respect for what she did. And that's the very least disrespect that she deserves. And she's really never been held accountable for her behaviors. And yes, you are correct. She's had massive plastic surgery. And it's kind of disgusting. Like, why do you even bother? You're like 80 years old. Just go away.
And I got to say something about Trump in this little segment here.
Go ahead.
Trump, when he was running for the presidency and he was in the debates with John McCain, in whether that was 2015 or 16, Trump said, and it absolutely stunned me, and I'm shocked that it never pissed off most of American vets who served in Vietnam, who are presently Republicans. He said, McCain was not a hero. Heroes are people who escape. You've got to be kidding. My heart was torn out. The guy spent 6 years in a prison getting tortured, comes back with an arm that wasn't all that useful. And this guy who escaped military service, who avoided military service, has the nerve to say that John McCain wasn't a hero. The whole nation should have been up in arms over that. I don't care what else you thought of McCain's politics or anything. He gave a chunk of his life in horrendous conditions. And he said, when McCain's father became head of some forces in the Pacific, I don't know the exact title, during the Vietnam War. And that's when the North Vietnamese said, we will let you out of Hanoi, John McCain. And John McCain said, not until, I can almost tear, not until every other soldier has been let out and gone home. That's a hero.
Well, gee, I'm sorry, Stuart. I realize this is something that really triggers
every once in a while.
No, I don't blame you, but that's the kind of person that Donald Trump is. And not only did he disrespect McCain's heroism, just as you said, regardless of what you might think of him as a politician, he also referred to the men who fought nobly in World War II. And according to General Kelly, I believe, he saw a burial ground. I think he was in Europe at the time, in Germany or someplace like that. And he referred to them as suckers. The people who fought Hitler are suckers.
It's in the same vein as saying heroes are the ones that escape. You're not a hero.
Right. It's the attitude of this man. And frankly, at the moment, this repulsive, disrespectful charlatan, friend of Roy Cohn, complete disaster, is on his way, it seems, to being the president of the United States. But that all said, he's not the only one who inspires violence. And this is my point. He does, but so do the Democrats. I mean, look what they've done to the Supreme Court, okay? Supreme Court justices have had death threats, they have increased security, etc. And who was right in front of the Supreme Court, raging in a bloody rage, almost like a Native American war cry? Oh yes, you know who I'm referring to. Our favorite senator from Massachusetts, Pocahontas Warren, a rich, white, blonde woman who had not one drop of Native American blood, who went around calling herself a Native American. And the reason she did, first of all, she was in front of the Supreme Court ranting and raving and stirring up anger and rage towards Supreme Court justices. It was disgraceful. She's a Harvard law professor, okay, showing such disrespect for an institution you would think she'd understand, which she doesn't, obviously, because she was so excited to generate political points. More importantly, like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, graduated from an undistinguished law school, Rutgers Law School. Yet somehow she ended up on the faculty at Ivy League law schools. We know the process for hiring at these schools. They want people at Yale, Harvard, etc. They want Supreme Court justices. You clerking for Supreme Court justices. Yet somehow this woman with her meager credentials ends up at Harvard. And before she had those jobs, she never identified as a Native American. She identified as a white woman. She took advantage of affirmative action so that she could get jobs at Ivy League schools that she did not deserve, and she has never acknowledged her deception or corruption. And the New York Times, when she ran for president, was lavishing her with praise and how she's a feminist icon and all the rest of it. She is the most disgusting person I've ever come across. And when she was in the Senate, Obama passed her over to become a cabinet appointee because she's such an abrasive, divisive person.
She is.
Yes. And not only that, Stuart, she is not a Native American. She is a goddamn
did she
liar.
put that down on some form? Is that the idea?
Did. She even put out a Native American cookbook.
Oh, no. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Oh, that's...
And I'm assure you, Lizzie Warren does not live in a teepee. She lives in a mansion. She is worth a lot of money. And this is someone that the far radical left feminists embrace, a complete fraud and a hypocrite. And she wasn't the only one who was in front of the Supreme Court, raging a stir, calling for action, almost encouraging violence against the justices. Let's refer to one of the most inept Senate Majority leaders I've ever heard, the worst opportunist out there. And yes, I've spoke of him before, and I refer to our senior Senator, Reptile Schumer. I mean, this is another guy who was kissing Trump's ass for years for campaign contributions, and then he's out in front of the Supreme Court stirring up anger, rage, and violence.
What was he doing?
I don't remember his exact words, but they were upset about a ruling, and they were threatening the justices with not violence, but threatening language. And it was just, this is the kind of behavior they do. But this is not the only examples in recent times. What about, we already talked about this a little bit, but the Democrat Party has embraced, defended, and never prosecuted the BLM rioters. They came into our neighborhood, they broke windows, they started fires,
stole.
They were violent to people. We were told it was white supremacists who were doing that, not these innocent protesters. But no, it was the BLM protesters. And they are a violent group. And then following these protests, Asian Americans were harassed and abused. Some were even pushed onto subway tracks at the hands of this BLM movement. So
another day, I want to get into there's a whole Asian package of things going on. And I don't mean that in a malicious way at all. A lot of it I have some sympathy for, but that's for another day for me, just another package of how they've been treated in American history and presently. And I see it every day. I'll give you one example and then I'll let you go back.
Sure.
I went into a bakery today in Chinatown, and it had a Chinese bakery, and I was getting something, and there was a guy in there. He was shabbily dressed, and I'm often shabbily dressed, but he looked dirty, and he looked homeless, and he had a plastic cup, and he's in their premises, and he's asking people for money. The Chinese, and I've seen it before in another bakery and in other institutions, they're afraid to say anything. They don't think they'll get treated well by cops. They don't get treated well. So I said to the guy, I said, get out of here. I said, you're not allowed to be here. You're harassing these people. The management didn't say anything to me. They didn't object. They're afraid. It's another subject. It's a sensitive thing.
Well, I think that the reason why Asians are targeted by the far radical left of the Democrat Party in their constituency is because these are people who work hard and have advanced themselves societally. We saw the Supreme Court ruled about Harvard's admissions practices, and they discriminate against Asians because they are successful. This is why they, and it's the same thing, frankly. Now, we had the Asian harassment. Now we watch these pro-Hamas demonstrators and the way they're bullying Jewish students, threatening them. They even went to playgrounds on the Upper East Side, this was at the beginning of all this, asking the parents who had Jewish children, or asking the nannies which children were Jewish. This Jews, like the Asians, have been a very successful, upwardly mobile group in America, and these people want to keep them down. They are resentful because they are failures in life.
I love to see people come over, study hard, often with the assistance of their parents, the encouragement. They work hard, they go to school, they get jobs, they proceed. They know the best way to overcome discrimination, which does exist and will continue to exist, is to succeed and to get a craft or to be educated. I love seeing Asian folks come work within the system to get an education and succeed. I will never stop enjoying seeing that.
Well, Stuart, what you refer to is the American dream and what it was there for. But the liberal Democrats don't like us to dream. They want us to be dependent on them. They want to keep us stupid, and they want to basically oppress us. Because once people become free and think for themselves, they no longer have control over it. And the Democrat Party philosophy, what it has moved to, which is a kind of a pathetic version of socialism, is they want to be in control of other people. They provide students in the minority neighborhoods with inadequate educations, and don't think that is an intentional also. They want them to be less educated, less smart, so that they can be dependent on them and a constant source of votes for them, because that's the only way they can get elected. They play.
Yeah, I got to stop you. I got to stop you. In terms of the education business, the failure, teachers can't be policemen as well. And when there are one or two cancerous kids in the room, I like to think the ones who are troublemakers and stuff, they can vitiate any of the good being done in the classroom. They can make people fearful, unwilling to study, unable to study. But the parents are often missing in action. Those kids, when I see kids sometimes with guns up in in Harlem, running around with pistols and stuff, I never see book bags on the back of these students.
Well, I think you're raising another issue, but that wasn't exactly what I was getting at. But you're correct. We have students are disruptive, and the teachers really aren't in the position, and they shouldn't be. But what I'm talking about is the public school teachers union apparatus, who has basically undermined any efforts to
charter schools. I don't want to see that.
Of course not, because that is competition for the mediocrity that they provide. And as you recall, our last mayor, well, I'm not supposed to talk about it anymore.
No, you can't say de Blasio today.
All right, well, I won't, but I will say, please urinate in front of his house. He lives in Parks. But at the end of the day, he fought against charter schools like viciously. This is disempowering people.
They are the hope. Charter schools are the hope for people who have parents. Oh, I don't mean the hope. I mean the only hope. For parents who say, I want my child to succeed. I want to get that child out of the miasma, the sewer of all those things that go on the streets. Get them into a school where their intellect can flower.
Exactly. Well, as I said, the teachers' unions don't want it. The Democrats don't want it. And that's not the only initiative to try. Yeah. Like, for example, there's the whole school choice issue of subsidizing people who want to send their kids to parochial schools or private schools, which they have also vehemently opposed, because it's not because they want to provide them a good education, because we see that they haven't. They want to fail these students, and they want to make them angry and dependent so they can go out and loot and riot with all their friends.
These ones you say want them to fail, they're also the ones, I don't think that's a clear picture. I think they're also the ones who, remember, we've had various times where teachers, administrators, principals have raised grades to push them on where they didn't show capability.
Absolutely.
That's sickening. That's just sickening. You are assuring failure in life.
They just pass them through to the next level without really teaching them anything, so that they don't have to deal with them another year. That is exactly.
And so that they can show the right numbers on their own charts for promotion or for success or whatever they, financial reason they have.
Well, those in charge of the teachers' unions and the educational system, like Randy Weingarten, those people are, once again, an establishment left-wing losers, and they are disgraceful. And she was one of the proponents, Randy Weingarten, but I'm not going to go down this road again because I'm going to lose it, closing down the schools for extended period of time, which was so damaging, and she was right behind it and defended it. And she is a disgrace. She should have been fired, eliminated from the educational system, but she is a cancer, just like those COVID policies. But Stuart, I cannot get down this road. And I think we probably should wrap things up for the day, but I assure you.
I think this was fun.
Oh, I do too. And I am unhinged. I hope that's okay with you. I know you want me to be positive.
But I'm asking you at times to show, I know it's hidden in there.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. There are moments where you probably have a positive thought. I think they ought to come out. I know it can be buried somewhere. For instance, well, no, I won't go into it now. I'll just say that you have a favorite president, and that's every once in a while.
Oh, Stuart, you had to bring that up.
No.
It's so sad that what we've had since, and I will end on this note, I miss Ron and Nancy every day. He was the greatest president of the 20th century. He liberated the world from communism and brought about an economic expansion of mammoth proportions. No president had, since his time, has ever done anything like it. God bless him and Nancy. Unfortunately, now we have Dr. Jill and Jeff. But on that note,
Take care, folks.
yep.